Yo, that beat never gets old, man.
Hey, you want me to give it the sauce? You want me to tell you the secret about that beat?
Yo, hook it up, bro.
Nah, I'll wait till after the show, man. I'll tell you.
Dang. He said you gotta wait till the end of the episode. I don't. Yo, you gotta wait till the end of the episode. I guess you gotta ride out with us. So, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Think Big podcast. I'm your one of your co-hosts, Marlon Johnson, aka Mindset Marlon. I'm chilling here with Daryl Ellison and the real Alejandro Alvarez, aka It's Really Alvarez. And today we're gonna be diving into pretty much like the expertise of the two gentlemen on my screen. See, these guys are what most people refer to as certified closers. Now, I call them something different. I call them openers because I like to believe that they open new opportunities for everybody. Like when they get on the phone, when they sit in front of somebody, they open up a new opportunity for all parties involved. And that's a special skill set. So today we're going to be talking about how basically you're going to be able to use this skill set to increase the amount of money you earn in 2023. And I got to say, even more than just earning money in 2023, it's going to increase the amount of wealth you have in your life in 2023 because wealth includes the relationships that you have in your life. And business is relationships. If you don't know this yet, I'm telling you right now, all business is relationships. You cannot name a single business that does not involve a human to human interaction at some point in that conveyor belt. So the better you get at sales, the better you get at communication, the more your business will thrive in this year. So I'll pass the mic over to Alejandro and Daryl, and I'm excited to hear what we got today. I got my notebook ready. I'm ready to take some notes from y'all.
Excelente. Thank you, Mr. Marlon. Thank you for everyone that is going to decide to show up. And if you didn't show up today, I am sorry. You will miss some fire stuff.
Facts.
Big
Because today,
facts.
because today we're going to get into a lot of these things that I get. I get messages about all the time. Hey, how do I close a seller? Can you help me close a seller? Right? Every single time. The first thing I ask is, why does the seller wants to sell? Why does the seller wants to sell? Because a lot of people think, oh, this is a sales job. I have to be salesy. And really, you don't, man. You just have to understand your seller's concern. And whatever that concern is, if you have the tools to solve that concern, then you have an opportunity to propose something to them that they may have never heard about, but at least they have it in their back pocket. And sometimes, depending on the seller situation, they can just be like, oh yes, that solved my problem. Let's move forward right there. And then you may have some other people that needs a little bit of time to think about it, to try out their other options, and that's fine. That's how I do business. It's like I always tell my sellers, hey, I'm not ready to do business with you until you're excited about moving forward. Period.
Yep.
That's
Right.
so big, right? It's huge, bro. Like, and why is that important, right? I want to talk about why that's important because so many people they get into these calls and this isn't even just real estate. This is all sales in general, right? It always starts with why. Like, why do you want this product? Why do you want to sell this property? Why are we on the phone right now, right? And most people they don't start with that. They don't think about the other person when they get on these phone calls. They don't think about what they're looking to accomplish. They think about themselves, right? So we do the role plays in the morning with the Daily Dow. I know you're in there, Marlon, as well. So when I do role plays in the morning with them, there's so many people who and in the Dog Pound Discord as well. There's so many people who we'll ask them at the end of the call, right? Like, why are you doing this? Right? Like why did you take the call this direction? Why did you pitch terms? And they're like, oh, because I want to have an Airbnb, or I want to do this and that. And we're like, bro, that doesn't matter, right? What matters is what is the seller looking to accomplish, right? Like what's wrong with them? What are they going through, right? And why is that so important? Because people, Marlon, let me ask you a question, Marlon. How do people make decisions? Do they make decisions
Emotionally all day?
So they don't use logic,
No.
right? So if you're just giving out facts and features and benefits, right, you're not really selling nobody. But if you can understand like emotion and how to get somebody emotionally involved with this sale and with this deal in general, you can get them to agree or disagree. Like you move them whichever way you want, right? So that's why it's so important to understand somebody's motivation. And what Marlon said is so big, right? I want to hit on what Marlon said, right? We're not like the closing part, like the mindset of us like closing somebody. I really like that you say we're not closing anybody, we're opening them to more opportunities, right? Because if you're closing them and you're like how does that sound, right? Like we're solving problems, right? We're being problem solvers. Our solutions are problems to solutions to their problems, right? To the seller's problems. So we're not closing anything. We're opening them and helping them to get to what they're looking to accomplish.
Yeah. So like I wanna like kind of give something for people to think about, because my mind works in frameworks, right?
Yeah.
It works with when we're thinking about sales. I had such apprehension to sales because I had a framework around sales as being something sleazy, and recognize that no business on planet Earth can work without sales. No business can inspire, no business can grow, no business can serve without sales. So it's important that we start to change our paradigm around sales and we start to adopt a handful of frameworks. So the first framework I want to give y'all is this framework to think about. The framework is going to be that you need to be able to arouse inside of the other person an eager desire to do the deal, to make the sale happen. Right? You have to start thinking about it from the standpoint of how do I get them to want to do this transaction, to buy the product, to put the property under contract. Whatever it is that you're doing in the sale, how do you get the other individual to want to do it? Because you will never convince them to do something that they do not want to. If you do, you will run into a buyer's remorse. This is where even after they make a decision with you, they back out of that decision later on. Right? Like Alejandro, Daryl, have you guys ever come across people that said, like, hey, I have the person, I've locked up this contract, but now my seller is not answering. Now the person is ghosting.
All the time, bro.
Oh man, that's perfect. That's perfect timing. Actually, this morning I had a meeting, and we have this deal we're locking up sub to in Florida, St. Petersburg, in Florida. It's a sub to 40K to the seller, walk away. It's a VA loan at 3 point something. And after we sent out the contract, he started asking a lot more questions, which nothing wrong with that. You should, because I want to make sure you're right about it.
And my Wi-Fi tweaking, but we live on YouTube. Hit the link in my bio. Think Big Podcast. We're talking everything sales training.
1 second.
What's up, D Rich?
Okay, perfect. So
talking everything sales training on the Think Big Podcast. My Wi-Fi actually just went up.
Movie right now, bro.
So y'all see me on here, but they don't see me on YouTube.
Yeah,
We'll be back soon.
I'm about to mute him. They're watching videos right now.
I think he froze on YouTube and he didn't realize that he was still on.
That was funny.
But yeah, either way, Marlon, what I was saying is I had a seller this morning. He just started asking a whole bunch of questions. And a lot of the time, I do show the acquisition how to alley-oop the seller to the TC, the transaction coordinator. And we like to keep it simple, right? So something I teach is don't give out too much information, or don't give out information that's not asked. And I say this because sometimes when a seller asks questions, people tend to become an AK-47 and start shooting out a lot of information. And what that does, it actually hurts you, because you're giving the seller other things to think about. You're overwhelming him. Something like if you tell the seller something about, oh, the contract is going to have this, and that, when literally he asks you, hey, when is the closing date? Now you're going to overwhelm the seller to a point where now he's going to start doubting himself because he doesn't understand everything you just gave him. So either way, this seller started asking a lot of questions. He got to a point where he just started asking unnecessary questions, right? Obviously, it's sub to is being being a transaction that a lot of sellers don't know about. So what we did is I told my transaction coordinator, let's send a message, let's cancel this contract, let's void it, and watch 5 minutes later he's going to call you. And it was like, are you sure you want to cancel it? This is a good deal. I'm like, yeah, cancel the contract. So we canceled the contract. 5 minutes later, this seller started, hey, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. Because what he said was, I'm going to look over the contract today and I'm going to sign it over tonight. But he didn't, right? So a lot of the time they start to not feel comfortable letting you know what's the actual concern.
Mm-hmm.
So when we cancel the contract, now he's coming back with the real concern. Right, because if you just want to leave it hanging out there, you can do it. You can leave the DocuSign open for as long as you want. But we tell our sellers, we have to the longest we can hold this out is for 48 hours. And I do that to put a sense of urgency, because you will have sellers, not every sellers, they will take your contract and they will go shop it around. I've had sellers done that to me before. Painful the first time. I had a seller that literally took the same terms I sent him, and he sent it to another buyer. And the buyer gave him a higher down payment. I'm like, bro, really? But it happens.
It happens.
So either way, moral of the story there is never give out information that a seller has not asked you for. People start to get into their sales shoes. Oh, how's this contract work? Well, let me tell you about this. Next, the seller's like, okay, I'll look it over, and then never signs and never answer the phone call. Why? Because you overwhelmed the seller. And no one wants to sound stupid, unfortunately. And the way you can avoid that is by just answer the questions that your seller's going to ask.
Bro, I freaking love that. Let me ask, have y'all ever read this book?
Oh, yeah.
Dale Carnegie. I have a different version of it.
Right? Yo,
is there a white book version of it?
Freezing up there, bro.
I'm still frozen, bro.
I feel like there's a white book version of it.
But so this is how to win friends and influence people if people can't see this book, right? And inside here, it actually says exactly what you just said, Alejandro, right? Like it says how you have to think in terms of how can I tie up what I want to what he wants, to what she wants.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, we know we want to make sales. We want to get contracts. We want to earn money. However, what we want needs to be in alignment to what they want. So then it begs the question, what does the other person want? How do I find out? And how do we find out? How do we find out what the other person wants? Like, Alejandro, when you're talking to your sales guys and you're talking to your acquisitions team, how are you training them to be able to go in and find out what the other party wants?
Open-ended questions. Third parties and open-ended questions. Third parties and open-ended questions.
Right. When you say third party, what's third party mean?
Okay, so great question, because a lot of people think you're just going to fabricate a third-party story that makes no sense to the seller. So you first ask open-ended questions to the seller. You understand their situation. You understand what they're trying to accomplish. And then you say, ooh, that's funny, because I literally had a seller that did X, Y, Z. And it doesn't have to be exact. It has to be something similar, like a similar situation. And they start to feel connected. And I made this up the other day. I call it the repainting the canvas. Ooh, this is really good. I made this thing up into my sales training. It's called repainting the canvas. So what that is by asking your seller open-ended question, you give them a blank canvas and they start to paint on it. And once they paint you their concerns, their, whatever they have going on, you can go in there and repaint it for them while they're looking at you, while they're looking at that same canvas, repaint it for them. So you fabricate a third-party story that's identical to what they have. So it's the same canvas, it's just a different color. So they can now see the better side of their concern. I don't know if that made sense.
So let me see if I caught you, because I've never heard that. I never heard of repainting the canvas. So essentially, you're having your guys ask questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Asking open-ended questions. In other words, they're asking questions that allow the prospect to be able to communicate and not just give you a yes or no answer, but to be able to elaborate on whatever answer it is that they do give. Mm-hmm. And upon that elaboration, your guys and your sales team, they're hearing the situation. Like they're actually catching, they're listening for that individual's situation, that person's special situation, potentially looking for their pain.
Yep.
And then when they get that, they are essentially repeating it back to the person in the form of a new story.
A new story with a positive side of it.
Interesting.
So they acknowledge the concern. You're acknowledging the painting that they have painted now. You're acknowledging that. And then because that's a big problem that people do. They go into third party without acknowledging the concern. Always acknowledge the concern before you move in anywhere else, before you go into any extra steps. Because if you don't acknowledge the concern, then they're going to feel like you're hiding something.
So let's hang out there for a second, because this is a huge piece. What's up, Keith? This is a huge piece. Keith just says he's relatively new as a sub-2 student. What's going on, Keith? Glad to have you here. But you said acknowledging the concern before progressing the conversation. And I think that's huge, Alejandro. And I don't want to skip over this because a lot of newer salespeople, they miss this, right? And I want everyone to understand, I don't care what you think you do for a living, you are all in sales. You might say, like, I don't invest in real estate, right? Or I'm an integrator. You are a salesperson, because if you speak to people, you're constantly selling them on you. You're constantly selling them. You're selling your kids on the idea that they should be good people. You're selling your community on the idea that they should be good, upstanding citizens. You're constantly selling everybody, right?
Yep.
Any human interaction is a sales interaction. So you want to make sure that you leave the sales table happy, and so does the other person. So Alejandro, you just said you make sure that your people acknowledge their concerns before progressing in the conversation. Now,
I call this also a thing. This I hope this is not considered cursing, but I call it ASS. ASS. It's funny, hilarious. So the reason why I make these funny remarks is because it tends to make it's something easier for people to remember. Oh, this guy said ass on the podcast. What is he talking about? Well, ass, what it means acknowledge, statements, shut up. Acknowledge, statement, shut up. Right? So I do a lot of these things during my sales training so I can teach them how to remember certain things by painting something that's memorable, like something funny. Ass. What do you mean by ass? Everybody started laughing. Acknowledge, statement, shut up. Acknowledge the concern, make a positive statement about it, and shut up. Watch what they say. What's their response?
That's huge. And so when you acknowledge their statement, does that mean you agree with what they are saying?
No, I agree that this is a concern. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the concern. I agree that that is a concern for you. That's a great concern, seller. Now, let me tell you about this, which is a statement, and then you shut up. Oh, really? Hey, you're going to, I can't do this because you're going to miss the payment. That's a great concern to have. I agree with you. I'm a complete stranger on the other side of the phone, right? Why would you trust someone on the other side of the phone to take over your payments? That's a big concern. I would be the same way. And here's what we've done in the past with other homeowners like yourself. XYZ, and then you shut up. Oh, really? You can do that? Right? Huge.
So, and that's what I want people to recognize, right? Like with that acknowledgement, it's not necessarily, we never want to disagree with a person. And when you don't acknowledge what they said, you've either, in their mind, you've disagreed with them, or they feel like you're skating over a topic. So we can never skip that. Ever. So then after you acknowledge and you present, you put you repaint the picture, you said, right? So you put a nice spin on their situation. What's that look like? Like, what's it look like to put a nice spin on a person's situation?
Well, you make it look positive. Like, with creative finance, like when you tell them, well, hey, I understand that's a concern if I do miss a payment. Now, have you thought of that being your best case scenario? And they'd be like, no, how would that be my best case scenario? Well, let's walk through that. I have, what we said is a deed in lieu foreclosure. Other homeowners, at any moment I'm 30 days late in any of the payment, you get to keep my down payment. You get to keep the updates I did on the property. You get to keep any payments I did along the way. You get to keep the mortgage pay down. On top of that, it's going to be a performing asset. If you get all of that stuff back, and let me ask you this, how much do you think your house is going to be worth? I don't know. When do you think I'll default again? I don't know, maybe 5 years from now. Okay, well, how much do you think your house is going to be worth in 5 years? Well, it's definitely going to be worth more. Okay, great. So if all that happens, you don't have to take me through foreclosure. You get to keep the house right back to you if I'm ever 30 days late, which states in our contract. How is that your worst case scenario? Walk me through that. What would they tell you after that?
They say, well, it actually sounds like a pretty good scenario.
That sounds like a good scenario.
It just sounds like it works out better for me.
Yep. So that's pretty much the concern. That's a great concern. Here's what we done. Here's this. How is it a concern to you? Or just make a statement and just be quiet. And then they will, because what you don't want to do is repaint their answer. You don't want to yell out their answer. Don't ever put your brain in the seller's brain, because a lot of people do this. You want to do this, right, Mrs. Seller? Well, if you do this, this will happen to you, right? Don't ever do that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever do that, because now the seller is going to feel like you're forcing them to sign a contract with you or do business with you. You want to let them say it. Once someone says something, no human on this planet wants to feel like they went against their own words.
So check this out, right? Because, and I want to explain now how this, we talk about this sales tactic, right? This framework of thinking in sales. It's not just about getting contracts either, because last week, Friday, I had a conversation with my contractors, and it was a situation where I had myself, my partner, and my contractor on the phone, and I was allowing my partner to spearhead the conversation. And what was going on, we were having a disagreement with the contractor as far as what he should have been paid for a particular job. So he was overpaid for the job. Money was sent to him, and we needed him to send some money back. Right? Sounds fair, right? You didn't do the work. Too much money was sent to you based on the invoice, but you didn't complete the work. So send some money back for the work that wasn't completed. Yeah. So the contractor begins to proceed saying, like, look, well, I'm going to eventually do other work for you guys. And I've done other work in the past. And, this really isn't fair. I've given you guys good deals. So this should make up for it. So he's trying to keep the money. Now, obviously, me and my partner aren't happy with that. We don't want that. But who cares what we want? What he's thinking about is what he wants. Now, I wish I could tell you that we had a perfect conversation. However, my partner in this situation proceeded to tell him, well, look, you should give back this much amount and you can keep this amount because that's what I think is fair. I think that's really fair. I think that's fair. I said it 3 times. I counted. Because each time he said it, I felt a blood vessel bursting in my head. Because that's not how we want to communicate to people. We don't want to ever tell them what we think is fair.
Right.
What I want to do is I want to ask them, what do you think is fair? Do you think it's fair to be paid for work that you haven't completed? Do you think it's fair that when someone doesn't do something for you, that you should still have to give them money? Would you do something like that? Asking them, because ultimately at the end of the day, a sales conversation is getting the other party to come up with the idea. It's getting the other party to come to that conclusion by their own means. If you are giving them the conclusion, if you are giving them the answer, you are telling, not selling.
Bro, they say sales is the art of letting that other person have it their way, right? Like, have it your way, right? You want to essentially, like you said, Marlon, get them to feel like they came up with this idea all on their own. In reality, you were asking the right questions, like Alejandro was saying, right? We're asking the right questions to lead them down paths that we want to take them to, right? And ultimately, bro, this is all. You want to have a sales framework, right? Like, this all starts with having a framework and a system when you're on these calls. Because if you don't have a sales system, you're just going to be out there swinging in the dark, right? If you have no clue that, okay, after I get my introduction, I need to set the proper expectations, right? I need to have an upfront contract. I need to let them know how this call, what the steps are on this call, right? Because if you don't, the seller or the person you're your prospect, they're going to be in control, right? They're going to be in control of the conversation. And how can we be the subject matter experts if they're the ones that are in control?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And especially real estate, right? Like, let's talk real estate specifically, right? Because it's so odd, right, Marlon? Like, this is the only real estate sales is the only sales where the seller feels like they're the one in power. I was talking about this the other day in Dog Pound, right? Like in the Discord. Why does the seller feel like they're the ones that have the control when we have the money? Think of any other. If I went to a sneaker store, right, and want to go buy a brand new pair of Air Force Ones, and one sneaker store tried to charge me $300 for it, right? But I went to another sneaker store right next door to it, and they got the same sneakers for $100. Why in hell would I ever go buy this $300 sneaker right next door? Why would I ever? You know what I'm saying? Like, I have the control, I have the power. I don't have to buy from you, right? But for some reason, these sellers think that they're the ones that are in control. They're the ones that have all the power when they don't. So we need to have a framework, a system that allows us to take back control of these conversations, right? And if you don't, you're going to fall victim to the seller sales system. And what they want to do is they want to get as much information from you and give you nothing in return. They want to know your price. They want to know your contracts. They want to know how long you've been in business. They want to know your company name. They want to know everything about you, right? And they don't want to give you nothing. When you ask them what's their price, they don't want to tell you nothing. When you ask them any questions, why do they want to sell? They feel like they don't have to talk to you, right? But it's your job to distinguish who's actually serious, right? Who's actually needs your help. Because I promise you, there's somebody out there who needs your help. There's somebody out there who needs you to give them a call and solve their problem, right? And you're not going to be able to do that if you're wasting your time talking with everybody else. So if your sales system, if you're not using a sales system, you won't be able to distinguish actually who's motivated, right? So like I teach my team, it's all motivation based, right? Everything is motivation based. If the person does not have a reason to sell, there's no reason for you to be on the phone with them. Let me not say there's no reason for you to be on the phone with them. There's no reason for you to provide a solution, right? Like I see so many people, they pitch terms. They just pitch a solution, just pitch terms. And it's like, why did you pitch terms? Oh, because I want to have an Airbnb. It's not a reason, right? So you need to be able to have a framework that says, okay, after I get this motivation, then I go to the next step, right? Alejandro, I love that you call it the painting a new canvas, right? Because in my sales system, we call it picture painting the step, right? So we get people, we get them to solve the problem, right? We get them to tell us their problem, right? In the problem finding step. A lot of times, sellers don't even know they have a problem until they see it, right? Until it comes out of their mouth, right? So you have to be able to ask skillful questions and ask the right questions, open-ended questions, so they can tell us and they can tell themselves, like, hey, I have a problem, right? And now once we understand their problem, we want them to paint the picture of everything that they want to happen, right? Are they going to take this money and go buy a boat? They're going to go kick their feet in the stand, right? Like, get us to tell us what you need, right? And then you also want to figure out, like y'all were talking about earlier, right? When we're sending contracts out and we don't get an answer, right? People start ghosting us, probably because you skipped the influencer step. It's probably because you didn't stop and you didn't ask, who else is going to be helping you make a decision? Like, who else is going to walk you through this decision-making process and tell you that this is something that you should do or not, right? Is there an attorney, you have a husband, wife, somebody, right? Because it's a huge step. And yeah, we could talk about how to overcome a lot of those objections, but if we have the sales system, we overcome these objections before they even come out, right? So if you don't have a sales system, I suggest you get into the Dog Pound Discord and get that sales system and start role playing, because it's causing you dues.
Something I wanted to highlight real quick, Daryl, when you said why these sellers feel like they have all the power, and I'll tell you exactly why, and at least this is my theory. It's because they have everybody calling them about the same property.
Yep.
That's the number one thing, right? Everybody's calling them about the property. Hey, what's your offer? What's your offer? What's your offer? That was one of my biggest hurdle when I first started real estate and talking to sellers, is they always, when I say, hello, how you doing? I'm trying to have a conversation. What's your offer? Did you call me with your offer? I'm like, whoa, what the heck? What do I do here? That was one of my hurdles.
Yep.
So what we do in my acquisition business is we have an upfront contract that sets the expectations moving forward.
Yep.
Right. So there's 3 things that I have that I mainly require for our lead managers to have with the seller. As soon as we get on the phone, they start yapping and be like, hey, before we go anywhere, or before I take up any of your valuable time, let me explain to you how we work, and then you can decide whether this call is worth your time or not. Fair enough? And be like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Like, how many people do you know that is going to call them and give the seller the power to decide if this call is going to be worth their time?
Bro, that's what it's about, right? It's about what I preach to my team, bros. We need to separate ourselves from everybody else that are making these calls. You know why? Because they literally these sellers automatically put you in a box when you call them anyways, right? So when you give them a call and you're like, hey, I'm calling about this property on Main Street, they're judging you from the jump.
Absolutely,
right? It's not you. It's from, and I think once you understand that it's not you, that's one of the most powerful things you can understand. It's not you. It's them. It's what they're going through. It's the situation that they're going through, and they're getting blown up by a bunch of knuckleheads. Like, so you got to feel them, right? Like, you got to understand. You got to have that empathy that it's not them. Like, if they snap on you, they're not snapping on you. They're snapping on everything else that has been dealing with, right? So I think the biggest part about that, Alejandro, is separating yourself from all those other knuckleheads that have just been giving them calls and just wasting their time, So like, if I even get a hint, like if they say something like, if they even try to put me in a box with the other wholesalers and say like, what's your offer? Like really fast like that, or say like, what's your company name? Like I kind of make a joke and I'll label it, right? I'll say, man, it sounds like you've been dealing with a bunch of knuckleheads. It sounds like you've been getting a lot of these calls, right? And they just open up, right? Instantly, I separate myself from everybody else, right? Because one, I'm clearly not a knucklehead, right? I noticed that you've been having a bunch of these calls. I have emotional intelligence, right? Like I notice things like that, right? So I'm not part of this group that you have been dealing with, right? And boom, I got instant trust and instant credibility, right? Because I separated myself from everybody else that is just blowing their phone up and wasting their time.
Yeah.
Well, that's huge, right? Recognizing how to get off script, right? And this is why it's important to not work with scripts, work with frameworks, because what you just said, right? You acknowledge when they say something to you, you're able to separate, and everyone listening should be able to do this. You all need to be able to do this. Separate your role from your identity. Recognize when you pick up the phone, when you're sitting in front of a client, in front of a prospect, in front of a seller, in front of whomever, your role is to help guide them to the next step. When they say things to you, recognize that they're speaking to the role. They're not speaking to the identity that is you. Sometimes people engage with the seller's remarks personally. How can they ever say something personal to you when they don't know you? So being able to recognize that although it's coming out and your internal reaction wants to be offended, don't be offended. Listen to what they're saying and recognize it's coming from a pain. You still have to ask questions to identify the pain, and you have to label. When you're able to label things, you're ultimately building credibility, because what you're saying is, look, I've been here before and I've seen that before. It's called this. You have language for it. You're showing your intelligence without making them feel stupid. You're showing them that you're actually seeing what's going on. That's huge.
Yep.
So what else y'all got? I'm learning right now.
Bro, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Daryl.
We got Nick Vlay with us, bro. Hold on,
Bro, Nick.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
Talking about sales, dog.
What up, Nick?
Training, Nick.
What's up?
Everything sales. How to convert how to 10x your conversion rate, sales strategies that will make you more money in 2023. And we were, just to recap, right? We're talking about just solving problems, right? Like one, one thing that I preach, bro, is your offer should always be a solution. Your offer should never just be numbers, ever. It should always be a solution to somebody's problem, right?
Let me ask a question. How often is it ever about the dollar amount? Like when you're in a sales situation, and you guys are gonna notice, like I keep saying sales situation because I know some people here don't do real estate.
Yeah.
Right. Like I get that. Some of you don't, or you do real estate in a different way. Some of you are transaction coordinators. So you sell a service to real estate professionals.
Yeah.
Right. Some of you are actually going out and just buying properties traditionally, and you're just trying to get a better deal. Right. Some of you have a product to sell. Some of you sell CRMs. Some of you sell whatever. But no matter what, when you're in a transaction, it's a sale. Why is it? How many transactions are ever purely just about the dollar amount?
None. It's always what are you going to do with that dollar when you get the money, right? Like, what's the plan? What is driving you to need that dollar? You know.
See, because I'm hearing you say that right now, Daryl. And what's crazy is I heard it when I was new, and even though I heard it, I doubted it. I didn't believe people when they told me that the sale conversation wasn't about the money, because one of the biggest objections I was always getting was either something cost too much or I couldn't accept that price because it's too little, right? You're not giving me enough money. So you're either charging me too much or you're not giving me enough money in exchange for this. What are they really saying?
You're not providing enough value. They don't understand the value that you're providing them. Yo, Alex Hormozi said it, bro. And I'll never forget this, and I'll never accept this as an excuse or an objection from now on, bro. He says if the price if the price is too high, you just did a bad job of showing how much value that you're providing, right? So like if I brought you a Ferrari for 2023 Ferrari, and I said I got it here for $6,000, I'll sell it to you for $6,000. It's yours. You will find that money, right? You will go find that $6,000 to buy this 2023 Ferrari. So it's not that the money's not there. The money's infinite, right? The money's abundant. They just don't see the value enough to go find it.
So that needs to be highlighted, right? Because in your sales process, in your sales journey, when you're talking to prospects, you're talking to clients, you're marketing online, you're putting your messages out there, you're putting your text messages out there, your cold callers are calling, you've got direct mail, whatever it is, when you are communicating with people, recognize what you're actually looking to get from them in the conversations is what is their problem. You're trying to identify their problem so that you can begin to show them by listening how they need to see the solution, because they want the solution, but you need to show it to them in the way they want to see it. That's huge. So many people approach this with, okay, well, you're in pre-foreclosure. I understand creative financing. I can just take over your mortgage. Stop being an idiot and let me take over your mortgage. Good luck closing that deal. Right? It's like telling the girl, hey, you're a pretty girl. I'm a good-looking dude. We need to just get married, go have some babies. What's wrong with you? Are you stupid? Yeah, like that's literally your approach on the sales floor. That's your approach on the call. Instead, understand. Ask the questions to figure out from them what do they want. Because listen, what we do, what I do, what Daryl does, what Alejandro does, what Sam does, we all do the same thing. Like our fulfillment, our service that we provide, it's literally the exact same thing. The exact same thing. Same with every other investor in the market. We all buy your property, right? Every realtor sells your property. Every car dealer sells you a car. So knowing that we all provide the same service, what's the reason one person goes with Alejandro versus going with Jim down the block? Jim down the block never took time to understand where that man was coming from. Alejandro learned by asking the right questions what that person was dealing with, what the issue was. And he then, because he was patient enough to listen, realized, oh, this is what the person believes their problem is. I know what their problem actually is, but I now understand what they believe the problem is. We need to speak to their current belief, not to my belief. That making sense to y'all?
Yo, that's so good, bro. Yo, Can I talk about that real quick, bro?
Oh, let's go.
Yo, I seen something very interesting. This Jeremy Miner, right? He's a sales trainer. He made like millions of dollars sales, like a lot of it, that money in sales commissions, bro. He's made a lot of money. All right. And one thing that he talks about, he's like, I absolutely hate when I hear the phrase, I could sell salt to a slug, or I could sell ice to an Eskimo, or I could sell water to a whale. Right. And he's like at first I'm like, yo, why? Like, I feel like that's a pretty good salesperson. And he's like, why in the hell would a slug need salt? Or why would an Eskimo need ice? You're selling them something that they don't need, right? So that's not sales, right? It would be beneficial if you sold an Eskimo a freaking something to keep him warm, right? Like, because he's cold, right? So it's not sales. You're not selling them something that they need, right? You're just selling them something that you want to sell them, right? So solve the problem, right? Find the problem and solve it.
Richard Knowles. Yo, that's spot on. That is 1,000% spot on. And I just put something in the chat, right? I'm going to put it up here on the screen because I want y'all to see this. This is something you want to live by. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a businessman or woman, you want to live by this, like this thought process, this framework with all of your products, all of your service. Provide more in use value than you take in cash value. If you can rack your brain around just this concept, your sales will go through the roof. Your services will go through the roof. Every time I find myself stuck, I start asking myself, how do I provide more in value, in use value? How do I give more value?
Is that the 5 laws of stratospheric success?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, it is. It is one of them.
Sauce.
Yo, in fact, do I even have that book on? Check it out, man. Like, I literally travel with this
Let's
book.
go.
I keep this in my bag all the time. Like, notice that the best books are apparently the best books are covered in red. Feel that? Because it's true. When you do this, when you provide more in use value and understanding this, what did Daryl say earlier? Alejandro, where did he say people make decisions from what part of themselves?
Ask that one more time. Sorry, bro.
People make decisions like based on logic or emotion.
Emotions.
Emotions all day.
Yep.
So when we provide value to people, sometimes we think providing value is so many things. It's emotional. Provide emotional value. Make a person feel important. Make a person feel heard. Build rapport. Build rapport.
I wanted to highlight on that because that really helped me out yesterday. I had a seller that talked to one of the sellers that I'm working with right now. Because he was like, hey, can I talk to any sellers that you done, subject to with? And it was funny as I reached out to the seller, I'm like, hey, can I ask for a favor? I've never asked for a favor for this guy. He instantly called me, hey, what's going on? What can I help you with? I was like, oh, wow. I have this seller that has a VA loan, just kind of like your situation. And he had some questions about it. He was like, done. I'm like, you don't want to know what? Done. I'm assuming you need me to call this guy? Done. And he actually told the guy in the email stuff that he'd never told me that I wasn't paying attention to. He was saying stuff like, hey, listen, this will sound very sketchy from the jump. This will sound very sketchy from the jump, but what I can tell you, I got my money, I got my down payment, my mortgages have been paid for the past few months. And Alejandro Alvarez actually called me after I moved to my new home to just ask me if I like my new home. This guy truly cares. So if you're going to do business with this guy, you're in the right hands.
Let's talk about that. Can we talk about something that like I actually don't hear a lot of people talk about often, and maybe especially in this industry, right? And like many people know, like in this industry, like I still wholesale deals, but not often, right? Like I've actually moved a lot to B2C sales in these last couple of months, like between my coaching, between doing like high ticket sales on the weekends, things of that nature. So sales is something I'm very, very comfortable and familiar with now. And what you just said, right? The post-close sale, right? Like following up with people after you've transacted with them. How important is that?
Dude, honestly, like I've done this from the heart, but apparently that's really important. Because how will you build your credibility if when a seller asks you, hey, let me know who you've done business with, and you don't have a relationship with, with your previous sellers? A lot of people think it's after the transactions you're done.
People leave money on the table. I want everyone listening right now, everyone that's logged in, everyone that's listening live, everyone that's listening to this recording, do yourself a favor right now. Get out a piece of paper. Write down the names of the people that you've transacted with, the last 20 people you transacted with. Go through your CRM. Find all of those people. If you got a big team, put one of your VAs on it. Put one of your salespeople on it. Have somebody on a slow day, not even a slow day, just have someone tomorrow, matter of fact, reach out and check in with all the people that you did business with.
You know what's crazy also, Marlon? I also helped the seller sell their house to another buyer. How many people you know that were willing to do that?
Not a lot.
Why did he sell it to the other buyer? Because the buyer was a better fit for him, for what he needed it. And he asked me, hey, what are your thoughts on this? He actually came to me, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And I looked at him like, actually, man, this is a really good deal. And it solves exactly what you're looking for. He wanted like a higher down payment and like a 2-year balloon, and the buyer was willing to give it to him. Like, yo, that's a great deal. That's exactly what you're looking for. You should definitely take it. And we still text till this day. He actually talked to me about like, hey, when are we going to play Call of Duty? Because I had a conversation about him about Call of Duty, but I don't have a system anymore. I gave it away.
So, Alejandro, you just sparked what I put on the screen. Think of becoming a trusted advisor.
Mm-hmm.
As a salesperson, sales is service. An advisor serves the king.
Yeah.
See, so many times in the sales process, the newer salespeople, what they're trying to do is they're trying to be in a movie, right? And they want to be the star of the movie, right? They're getting into this movie and they're trying to be Luke Skywalker. In the sales conversation, you are not Luke Skywalker. And people might be a little confused by this. Like, wait, but Luke's the main character, right? He saved, he blows up the Death Star, right? That's like you getting the contract, you're saving everyone. You're not Luke Skywalker. The client is Luke Skywalker. The prospect is Luke Skywalker. You are Yoda. Their problem is Darth Vader. Yoda trained Luke on how to take down Vader. Right? The movie wasn't about Yoda, and yet Yoda was the most powerful character in the entire film. The advisor. Start to put yourself in that position so the advisor does what's right for the main character. The advisor doesn't try and take the glory. So you in that situation, Alejandro, you helped him. You advised him. Right? Now, some people might be like, but yeah, you gave the sale away. But you built enough rapport that now got you another opportunity, another sale. See, it's never the wrong thing to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Write that down. Man, that's facts. Well said, Mr. Marlon.
I mean, bro, you know what it is? Like, and like I know, like I'm always like very much about mindset. And I know when I talk about these things, I come at it from, more of a 30,000 foot high point of view. Right.
Mhm.
And the reason being is because ultimately when my mind started shifting on this, like I'm trying to give people the sauce that got my brain to shift. I'm trying to give people the sauce that other people pay tens and twenties of thousands of dollars to coaches to figure out, right? To get their paradigm in this place where not only do they know this logically, but they truly start to live by this faith that, you go into these conversations, all of them, and you frame yourself as I'm here to serve you. Every
Yep.
sales training. So when you're being slick with the conversation, when you're being slick with questioning at certain times and not giving out too much and not being a machine gun and just pouring information and telling facts, you're doing so because what you're doing is you're making it about the other person. When you're telling facts, you're talking more than you're listening. When you're asking questions, you're allowing the other person to be the star. You're allowing them the speaking role. Really really think about that. You should get practice, and you don't have to be in a sales situation to practice this.
Every conversation is a sales situation, Marlon.
I was about to say, every time I'm in the house with Daryl, Daryl's like constantly working on like sales. Like every time, like he'll say something to me, he'll start mirroring me. He's like, I mirrored you, closed you.
I Marlon every day.
Every day he comes out, he comes over. He thinks he's close to me. I get it. I let him have his fun. But real talk, this framework can be thought about in every area of your life. This is how you will get the repetition. This is how you will get the practice. This is how, when you are on your sales calls, when you're during your money making hours, this is how you're going to start making more money. Right? And you want to practice because you're going to screw up opportunities. I screwed up an opportunity last week. Do you know why I screwed up the opportunity last week? Can you guess?
Why, bro?
Let me guess.
I was talking way too much.
Dang it.
I was talking more than I was asking questions. I was telling more than I was selling.
Telling ain't selling, baby.
Telling ain't selling. So I want people to understand this, because we reflect on it, and reflect on your own conversations that you've had recently. Reflect on conversations, even if they weren't direct money-making conversations, where you were trying to influence someone to do something. Maybe it was your kids, your spouse, someone you saw on social media, and you didn't get the reaction or response you wanted. Think about what was in your communication. Did your communication highlight to them what's in it for them? Did your communication open up a space for them to want to tell you what was going on, for them to want to reveal the real problem? If it didn't, then you failed them. They didn't fail you. You failed them. We got to have extreme ownership of every situation. Go get practice. Go on the dog pound. Go practice with Daryl. Go practice with that entire community. There's like 400 people in there role playing every single day. It's insane.
Almost 500, bro.
Almost 500 people inside there role playing every single day.
Half a stack.
You know what I mean? So, guys, like I get excited about, like, I just get way too excited. So I'm gonna stop talking for a second.
Bro, I think we hit the nail on the hammer. Hammer with the, I always mess that phrase up. I think we freaking put that to sleep, bro. Like, you have to care. Like, to wrap this up, you just have to care about solving this other person's problem on the phone, right? It's not about you. So shut up, ask the right questions, and solve a problem. Like I always say, make a friend, find if that friend has a problem, and then come back and solve it.
You know what's interesting? All right, I know we kind of said we hit it on the head, but like, I know we're talking, like, we're framing this so much for real estate, and I think the reason people struggle, I'm not going to speak about other people. I'm going to share with you guys something. Real estate sales was kind of like my first time recognizing that I was in a sales position. Yeah. But when I got into real estate, I realized, like, okay, I need to learn sales skills. I went and got a job at LA Fitness, right? Like LA Fitness, the gym, very early on. So this is like November of 2019. A lot of people have no idea. I did it for like about a month. I sucked at it. Terrible, horrible. I think I made like maybe like 10 sales before I left. And like I was only there for like, like a few weeks, like 3 weeks to a month. And what was interesting was I went there because I wanted sales experience. When I was getting on the phone and talking to these people, I realized real estate was this weird reverse selling process. I had to sell them on the idea to sell to me and make me the buyer again. Right, so I realized I was selling people on an idea. I was basically selling them on the idea that they should work with me. So I was selling myself and selling my offer of purchasing their home. It's a weird process, right? And that's not often the situation when you're looking at a traditional being somewhere and someone else is the buyer. So when I was hearing all of this stuff, I was trying to figure out how do I add the value in this situation, right? Like how do you add the value in a reverse selling situation? It was so phenomenal, unbelievably crazy to me. And it wasn't until I started looking at the regular selling model again that I started to see how you add value. And I started to see that when you're adding value, again, it comes back to this concept of, I'm beating a dead horse here, solving the problem and showing them that you have standards and conviction on how you're going to do it. Becoming the person that's so convinced that you're going to solve the problem better than anybody else and letting that come through in your communication.
So good.
Having conviction is critical. Knowing what you're capable of doing and having a line in the sand that you're not willing to cross over and you won't let them move your line, this will help increase sales. Guaranteed. So I'm done talking about this topic.
I wanted to give some advice and some tips for those who are starting new into real estate. Whenever you feel frustrated, kind of question yourself why you're doing this. Really quick, like just real quick. Whenever you feel frustrated, like at some point you're doing real estate, ask yourself, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Because I'll be completely honest with you. I've been doing wholesaling full time in real estate for 3 years now, and I haven't feel frustrated for what I am doing. And the reason why I don't feel frustrated is because I do it to help people. I see the pleasure, that's all the pleasure I get out of this business is hearing people say, you helped me. You got me out of a pretty serious situation. Or, my employees, thank you for this bonus. I can go buy this for my kid this month. So and I say that because a lot of people mistake this whole wholesale thing for like a quick cash scheme or whatever that thing is called. If you're doing it for the money and you go a full month without making money, you will quit. You'll get frustrated and you'll quit. But to me, when I wake up in the morning, I have to go speak on the phone again over and over. I always question myself, who needs my help today? What family can I help change their lives? And if you have that attitude every single day while you're doing real estate, I promise you, you will become successful the more you do that. I don't know who on this planet feels bad about helping people. That is weird. I've never met someone like that. So that's just my tips there.
Bro, I love that. Marlon, you're muted, bro. You're muted if you're saying something.
I understand. I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I think we can wrap that up for sales. Alejandro, Marlon, where can anybody find y'all if they want to get to know y'all, if they don't follow you already?
Right here at Mindset Marlon on IG, on YouTube, across the platforms. Let's connect. I think the IG is going to be the best place to come hang out and to stay connected. Like if you guys are in Daryl's Dog Pound, I pop in there every now and then as well. So if you guys are just hanging out in the Dog Pound, you'll see me popping in there saying what's up. Yeah.
Let's go.
What up, Eddie?
Let's go.
Shout out to Eddie, man.
Yo, Marlon, what we got going on this weekend, bro?
Bro, we got the marathon going on, man. We got the SoCal Marathon we're running on Saturday. Been training nonstop for the last few months, so I'm pretty hyped about that one.
Hey, how can you train for the marathon, bro? Give me some tips.
Alejandro, you running one with us?
How can I train for it? I'm willing to push myself.
Let's go. Did you just commit to running a marathon with us on the Think Big podcast?
Hey, take it easy.
Hold on, Marlon. I think he should run this one.
The Whiskey Road. We're running Whiskey Road in October.
I think he should run this one in October with us, bro.
October? What day?
October de ocho.
Ooh, that's the day before my birthday.
Ooh,
Let's
nice
go.
birthday present.
It was meant to be, huh?
It was meant to be.
Meant to be.
Eddie Charles says he wants to train as well. Eddie Charles is charged up out here.
Let's go.
By the way, I went skydiving with Eddie yesterday. 18,000 foot jump in Tampa, Florida with my man Eddie Charger.
Dang.
It was fire, yo.
When are you going back, Marlon,
had
bro?
Ace, we had
I'll,
Carl, we
I'll
had-
do it if you do it.
Bro,
when you go
Munif
back.
took a nap in the middle of the air. He was sleeping on the way down at 120 miles an hour.
That's
It's
dope.
crazy.
That's dope. That's a memory that you'll never forget, bro. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
good people.
I wish I
So
was-
yeah, but Daryl, I think we're good to wrap it up, man.
Yes.
We'll wrap it up. We'll catch y'all next week on the Think Big podcast, where we're going to be talking about something that's going to help you make more money. We'll catch y'all next week every Tuesday, 5 o'clock Arizona time. The other time you can Google it. I'll see y'all next week.